Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Deluded. That is what Dillian Whyte is calling Derek Chisora over the state of negotiations between the two. They're looking to make the fight for December the 22nd at the O2 in London. That would of course be a pay-per-view event, a rematch between the pair, famously ended in a close win to Dillian Whyte at the end of 2016. Many, including myself, thought Derek Chisora won, but obviously it was a good fight, a close fight, and one of the best heavyweight fights, one of the best fights in boxing in all of 2016. It was an all-out just brawl, just punches galore, and those guys just didn't hold back. And this rematch hasn't been as straightforward as it may have been. We've had a few other players sort of dip in and dip out. So obviously Dominic Breazeale and Luis Ortiz were names that were talked about by Eddie Hearn, Whyte's promoter, as sort of being in the mix here, that it was a sort of a three-way contest to get the fight. But they've actually dipped out now. So Luis Ortiz is going to be facing a Travis Kaufman on the December the 1st on the Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury undercard, while Dominic Breazeale will face Carlos Negron on December 22nd in New York. So that leaves just the one character left in this act, and we've got Derek Chisora, who seemingly is in a stronger negotiating position than he was a week ago. And a couple of weeks ago when Luis Ortiz's name was mentioned, obviously that got fans excited. It potentially lessened Chisora's negotiating power, but he came out very strong, sort of saying, look, I'm the money man, you want to make the fight with me. And obviously he's since signed David Haye very publicly. That was another move designed to get a little bit more sort of publicity for his cause. And now with Breazeale and Ortiz dipping out of the race, he is the sole horse in the race, it would seem. But will they run the race? Because obviously the threat Eddie Hearn has been hanging out there is, look, we can just walk away if he wants too much. We can get Dillian Whyte out on another card. We could get someone else to fill this card, potentially Cal Brook, or Dillian Whyte could box in America. There are options. So now Dillian Whyte has sort of said to The Sun that Chisora is just asking for too much. A lot of these guys say they want to fight, but they soon find a lot of nonsense reasons to get out of it, or they try to price themselves out of a deal by coming up with an unrealistic figure. Derek named a figure. It was more than we wanted to give him. We offered it, and then he signed with David Haye. Now we are trying to deal with a deluded guy and an egotistical maniac. It's like negotiating with two of your ex-girlfriends teaming up on you when you have moved on and met a new girlfriend. Yeah, so Dillian Whyte there. I'll just see what else is in the article here. I just don't have time for nonsense. I just get in there. If people want to fight me, then they just have to be reasonable with the deal. I gave Chisora what he wanted, and then he brought Haye on board to get him the same deal that he was going to get anyway, and Haye is making the deal difficult. I thought bringing Haye on board would make the deal easy, but it's made it more difficult. Haye is an egomaniac. Some of the things he says he wants are crazy. I was realistic with them. We offered them 25%, then 30%, and then we moved again a bit over that. But now Haye is on board that he wants 50-50. I will just end up fighting someone else. To make that amount of money I'm offering him for one fight, he would have to have 10 or 20 fights, and he doesn't have that many left in him. He will end up fighting someone young, hungry, and losing because he is not as motivated. And that is the end of the quotes there from Dillian Whyte. Okay, so there's quite a bit to unpack there. So if we get straight to the end part of the story here, so started offering 25%, and that probably feels a bit low. Dillian Whyte, he is clearly the A side in this equation though. His fortunes have soared a bit higher than Chisora's since they fought in 2016. And remember, while Derek Chisora had that recent win over Carlos Takam, he did actually lose to Ajit Kabayel last year, and a lot of people sort of thought at that point, well, yeah, he's not washed up, or potentially washed up, but certainly he was gatekeeper level at best. But obviously knocking out Carlos Takam, his stock has risen dramatically. Maybe not as dramatically as he thinks, though. 25% feels a little bit low. 30%, that's, I could potentially see that. But maybe 60-40, 65-35, and it sounds like they've gone up over 30%. But Haye is asking for 50-50. Now that's just not going to happen. It's clearly some sort of negotiating tactic, because it is negotiations right now, but 50-50, if that is really what Derek Chisora wants now as a result of David Haye's demands, and clearly Haye is running this all through Chisora, and if he wants 50-50 and expects to get 50-50, well, he's going to be bang out of luck. There will be no fight, and Derek Chisora can wave bye-bye to his paycheck. And Whyte is right. Chisora will need to have a pile of fights to have the same 7-figure sort of sum that he would get in this actual fight. And Whyte is right here. Chisora would need to fight many times just to make the same sort of money he's going to get in this fight, which would arguably be somewhere upwards of 7 figures. So Chisora and Haye, they're really playing hardball here, but surely the runway, they're coming towards the end of it. We're towards the end of October. The fight is December the 22nd. They need to announce this thing. They need to get it underway, get selling the tickets. You know, if you leave yourself not enough time, then obviously that's going to sort of hurt and harm the event to some extent. Obviously, this sort of event would attract attention anyway, but the more time you have is always the better. I mean, you don't want to have a ridiculous amount of time, but they're already cutting it fine. It's under 2 months now. If it was, 3 months, that's a decent time to announce a big fight like this, but we're under 2 now. So, yeah, they're really playing hardball for this. And we know Dillian Whyte, he wants this fight. And we know Eddie Hearn wants this fight because it's the best time to ever have it. Simply because after the 2 wins that both guys have recently had, with Dillian Whyte beating Joseph Parker and Derek Chisora beating Carlos Takam, both their stocks are high. Chisora's are higher than it's been for a while. This will never make as much money as it can right now. Obviously, Chisora and Haye, they know that, and they're trying to push the envelope here, but it's just starting to get a bit ridiculous, because 50-50, if he really wants that and expects that, it's just not going to happen, and he is deluded if he thinks he's going to get that. But I do think, they need to be fair with the deal, but what is a fair deal here? Is 30% fair? 35%? 40%? Obviously, they're sort of trying to hash this out in the boardroom at the moment with negotiations, but I don't see 50-50 as being viable, and obviously neither does Dillian Whyte. But in terms of Derek Chisora, a couple of days ago, he was actually out in Sky Sports trying to sort of smooth over, this fight's going to happen. He was talking to Sky Sports. He said, the headline here, Derek Chisora expects to finally agree a rematch with Dillian Whyte. So he's fronting in a certain way here. Where are we on the quotes here? We want to fight Dillian. It's going to happen. Why is it not going to happen? It will be announced when Eddie Hearn comes back from America, I think. Talks are going well. We're just waiting for Eddie to come back from America. He's in America and he'll be back Monday. No other quotes there. And it doesn't really actually sound like it's going quite as well as Chisora is fronting in this earlier story, which ran before Dillian Whyte's story in The Sun. So obviously Dillian Whyte has almost had enough of this in terms of, some of the antics and the whole stuff with it being like 2 ex-girlfriends ganging up on him and Haye being an egomaniac. I'm sure it feels like that, and yeah, Haye is an egomaniac, and obviously Derek Chisora is a tough customer himself. But it would be interesting to see what happens here, because all involved, they want to make money. And this is what it's boiled down to again. It's about money and the split. And I'm sure Haye, he's got a number in his mind. It might be 35%, 40%, 45%. I'm sure he's not going to just kind of draw a line in the sand and say 50-50, that's it. Because if that is the case, it's not going to happen. But it's become about money. And Chisora, he's got to be careful here, because he might end up sort of biting the hand that feeds and missing out. And obviously, this is sort of the biggest and most viable fight for Dillian Whyte right now, with Ortiz off the shelf, Dominic Breazeale off the shelf. I mean, who else is available and not already committed that can give Dillian Whyte a, credible and decent fight for the end of December? Hard to say. I mean, I don't really think of any names off the top of my head here. We'll have to see where this goes, but obviously Chisora thinks this is going to get done pretty soon. Whyte, he doesn't sound as convinced. Says he gave Chisora what he wanted, backed away, and now wants 50-50. So he was offering 30-something%, and it's not getting the deal done. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. That's boxing_squared. I'm out.